Hi guys, the night settles softly over the Nile. The day's warmth still lingers inside the stone walls and mud brick homes, but the air has begun to cool. A gentle breeze moves across the wide river, carrying the faint smell of damp earth, reeds, and fresh water. Somewhere along the shore, tiny insects sing in steady rhythms that have echoed through these lands for countless generations. Above them, the stars shine with a quiet certainty, filling the dark sky from one horizon to the other. There is no hurry here. The villages have become quiet. Cooking fires have faded into glowing embers. Families have finished their evening bread. Clay bowls have been washed with river water and turned upside down to dry before morning. Children have drifted into sleep beneath woven blankets. Their parents rest nearby, tired from another long day beneath the Egyptian sun. Only a few sounds remain awake. A fisherman checks the rope that holds his small boat against the riverbank. Somewhere farther away, a donkey lets out one sleepy call before becoming silent again. The slow current of the Nile continues its endless journey north, just as it has for thousands upon thousands of years. Tonight, we travel gently into this peaceful world. Not to watch great battles. Not to stand beside famous kings. Instead, we will walk beside ordinary people whose names have long been forgotten. Farmers whose hands carried the smell of wet soil. Bakers who rose before dawn. Scribes whose fingers darkened with ink. Stone workers whose shoulders became strong beneath years of lifting heavy blocks beneath bright sunlight. Together, they built something remarkable. One of the longest-lasting civilizations in human history. It lasted not because every year was easy. Not because every ruler was wise. Not because every harvest was perfect. It endured because millions of ordinary days quietly followed one another. Morning after morning. Season after season. Generation after generation. Its greatest strength was not excitement. Its greatest strength was routine. Even now, as the stars shine above the Nile, tomorrow has already begun. Long before sunrise, while darkness still covers the river, the first workers will wake. They will rise without clocks, guided by habit that has been learned since childhood. Their feet will touch cool packed earth inside their homes. Some will wrap simple linen around their bodies. Others will step outside carrying small oil lamps whose tiny flames dance in the early breeze. The village slowly begins breathing again. A woman kneads dough prepared the evening before. The flour feels soft between her fingers. She adds water carefully, turning it again and again until it becomes smooth. Nearby, another family grinds grain between heavy stones. The steady scraping sound mixes with quiet voices that have not yet fully awakened. Before long, the smell of fresh bread spreads through the narrow paths between homes. It is a familiar smell. Comforting. Dependable. Many mornings have begun this way. Many more will follow. A farmer steps outside carrying a wooden hoe polished smooth by years of work. He pauses for a moment and looks toward the eastern horizon. Soon the sky begins changing from deep blue into gentle shades of gray. Then comes pale gold. The sun rises slowly. It always does. The people trust it without needing to think. That quiet trust reaches into every part of Egyptian life. The river rises. The river falls. Seeds are planted. Grain is harvested. Children grow older. Parents become grandparents. New homes are built beside older ones. The world changes slowly enough that each generation can teach the next exactly what it has learned. This is one reason Egyptian civilization became so stable. Life moved with rhythms that nature repeated again and again. The Nile was never simply a river. It was a patient companion. Each year its waters spread gently across the fields. The flood covered the land with dark rich mud carried from places far to the south. When the water slowly withdrew, it left behind soil ready for planting. The people understood the cycle deeply. They did not fight it. They worked beside it. During the flood season, many farmers could not work their usual fields. Instead, some repaired tools. Others helped build walls, canals, temples, or storehouses. Skilled craftsmen carved wood. Potters shaped clay. Families mended clothing while waiting for planting season to return. The year itself created balance. No season remained forever. Each one had its own work. Each one had its own pace. Even children learned these patterns while they were still very young. A little boy follows his father into the fields. His sandals leave tiny prints beside much larger footprints already pressed into the damp soil. He watches carefully as seeds disappear beneath the earth. No long speeches are needed. Learning happens quietly. One careful movement at a time. Nearby, a young girl helps her mother prepare baskets for carrying grain later in the year. She learns how tightly the reeds must be woven. She learns which baskets are best for bread and which are stronger for heavier loads. Knowledge moves gently through families. Not inside books. Not inside grand ceremonies. But inside everyday life. This simple way of teaching helped Egypt remain steady for centuries. Each generation inherited skills that had already been tested by countless seasons. When one elder grew old, another pair of younger hands was already ready to continue. Nothing needed to change quickly. The villages themselves reflected this peaceful rhythm. Homes stood close together. Their walls were built from mud mixed with straw, shaped into bricks beneath the hot sun. Once dried, these bricks held the day's warmth long after sunset. Inside, rooms remained simple. A few woven mats. Clay jars filled with grain. Wooden stools. Perhaps a low bed made from rope stretched across a wooden frame. Nothing wasted. Everything useful. The homes were not large. Yet they sheltered families through many seasons. Outside, narrow pathways wound between buildings. Children chased each other through clouds of fine dust while older neighbors greeted one another in soft voices. Chickens searched for scattered grain. Goats rested in patches of shade whenever the afternoon became too hot. The heat itself shaped daily life. As the sun climbed higher, work became slower. Workers paused beneath palm trees whenever possible. Water was shared carefully. Linen clothing, light and loose, allowed air to move across tired skin. No one could command the sun. Everyone adjusted to it. This quiet acceptance appeared again and again throughout Egyptian society. Nature set the rhythm. People followed. As morning becomes afternoon, the village grows quieter beneath the heavy heat. The brightest hours belong to the buzzing insects and the shimmering air above the fields. Even birds seem slower now. A fisherman sits beneath a woven shelter repairing a torn net. He works patiently. One knot. Then another. His hands move almost without thought. He has repeated these same motions for many years. Nearby, a potter shapes wet clay upon a turning wheel. The vessel slowly rises beneath steady fingers. There is no rush. If the walls become uneven, the clay simply returns to the center, ready to begin again. Many kinds of work in Egypt rewarded patience more than speed. Stonecutters learned patience. Carpenters learned patience. Weavers learned patience. Scribes learned patience. Day after day, careful work slowly became beautiful work. And beautiful work lasted. As afternoon slowly fades, shadows begin stretching across the ground. The heat softens little by little. Farmers gather their tools. Boats return toward the shore carrying fish that will become tomorrow's meals. The village awakens once more. Cooking fires appear. Smoke rises gently into the evening sky. Families gather together again. Simple meals are shared with quiet gratitude. Bread, onions, beans, fresh fish when the river has been generous. Sometimes sweet dates. Sometimes figs. Nothing extravagant. Yet enough to continue another day. The conversations are gentle. A father speaks about repairing an irrigation ditch tomorrow. A mother reminds her daughter to collect water before sunrise. An elderly neighbor remembers a flood many years ago that covered fields farther than anyone expected. Stories drift naturally through the evening air. Not stories of heroes alone. Stories of weather, harvests, neighbors, animals, children. These small conversations quietly bind a community together. And perhaps this is another reason Egypt remains so stable. People belonged not only to a kingdom. They belonged to one another. The stars slowly return. One by one. The Nile reflects their light in broken silver patterns upon its gentle surface. The same river that carried trading boats. The same river that watered fields. The same river that watched countless generations come and go without ever losing its patient flow. Tomorrow morning, before dawn, another family will wake. Another baker will knead dough. Another farmer will walk toward the fields. Another child will begin learning work that has already been practiced for hundreds of years. Without realizing it, they will help preserve one of history's most enduring civilizations. Not through great acts, but through thousands of ordinary ones. And as the quiet river continues flowing beneath the endless stars, the steady heartbeat of ancient Egypt carries on, slow, dependable, and peaceful, just as it has for longer than almost anyone can remember. The first hint of morning arrives so gently that it is almost impossible to notice. The eastern horizon grows only a little lighter. The stars remain above the desert, but they begin to soften as a pale gray light quietly spreads across the sky. The air is cool now, carrying the pleasant smell of damp reeds along the edge of the Nile. For a short time each morning, before the heat returns, Egypt feels calm and refreshed, as though the land itself has taken a long, peaceful breath during the night. The river is already awake. Its surface moves without hurry, reflecting the changing colors above. Small ripples spread from fish that briefly break the water before disappearing again into the quiet depths. A few birds glide low across the reeds, searching patiently for breakfast. Their wings make almost no sound. Near one village, a woman walks toward the river carrying two clay jars balanced carefully on a wooden yoke across her shoulders. She has made this journey countless times. Her feet know every stone in the narrow path. Even in the dim morning light, she hardly needs to look where she is going. Other figures appear one by one. Some carry baskets. Some carry tools. Some simply walk with empty hands toward the fields where another day's work is waiting. Nobody speaks loudly. Voices remain soft, almost respectful, as though the morning deserves its own quiet beginning. The stability of Egypt was built from mornings like this. Not one morning. Not one year. But thousands of mornings that unfolded almost exactly the same way. Each sunrise offered familiar work. Each evening offered familiar rest. The rhythm itself became a kind of comfort. Children grew up surrounded by routines that seemed as permanent as the river or the desert cliffs beyond it. They knew when grain would be planted, They knew when boats would carry goods downstream. They knew when the flood waters would slowly return. Their lives were shaped not by sudden surprises but by patterns that had proven themselves again and again. This predictability made planning easier. A farmer could repair his tools during one season because he already understood what work would arrive in the next. A potter knew when families would need new storage jars before the coming harvest. A carpenter understood when boats would require fresh repairs after months upon the water. Little by little, everyone depended upon everyone else. The farmer relied upon the potter. The potter relied upon the reed gatherer. The reed gatherer relied upon the rope maker. The rope maker relied upon the flax grower. Each person completed only a small part of daily life, yet together they formed something strong and lasting. As the sun rises higher, the village becomes filled with gentle activity. A baker places rounded loaves inside a clay oven that has already grown warm from glowing coals. The smell of fresh bread drifts through nearby streets, mixing with the scent of smoke and warm earth. Children pause for a moment as they pass, breathing deeply before continuing with their small morning chores. Nearby, a young apprentice follows an older craftsman into a workshop. The room is simple. Sunlight enters through a small opening near the roof. Wood shavings cover part of the floor. Simple tools rest neatly along one wall, each one carefully placed after yesterday's work. The older craftsman does not hurry. He selects a piece of wood and runs his hand slowly across its surface. He feels its grain, its weight, its balance. Only then does he begin cutting. The apprentice watches without interruption. There are no long lectures. Only careful observation. The older man has learned that skill cannot be rushed. Hands must repeat movements many times before they become smooth and natural. This quiet way of teaching helped preserve knowledge for centuries. Every generation inherited not only tools but habits. Habits of patience. Habits of careful work. Habits of finishing each task well before beginning another. These habits became invisible threads connecting people across hundreds of years. Far from the workshops, another group of workers is already walking beside irrigation canals. The canals are not large rivers. They are narrow paths for water, carefully shaped by human hands. Without them, much of the land would remain dry beneath the powerful Egyptian sun. The workers carry wooden shovels over their shoulders. Some remove mud that has collected along the edges. Others strengthen the banks with fresh earth. Their work is slow, sometimes repetitive, rarely noticed by anyone outside the village. Yet these canals quietly support everything around them. Fields remain green because water reaches them. Families have bread because grain can grow. Animals have food because grasses survive. Entire communities depend upon these narrow channels of moving water. The workers understand this. They may never receive great honors. Their names may never appear inside temple walls. Still, they arrive each season. They complete the work. Then they return home. This steady sense of responsibility helped Egyptian civilization remain dependable through many centuries. Even the largest kingdom depends upon ordinary people doing ordinary work well. As the morning continues, boats begin appearing upon the Nile. Some are small fishing boats, guided with simple oars. Others carry heavier loads. Bundles of papyrus. Clay jars filled with oil. Baskets of vegetables. Stone blocks from distant quarries. The river serves as Egypt's great road. Travel upon water is often easier than travel across dry land. The current carries boats gently northward. The wind often helps them return south. Boatmen know these patterns well. They study clouds. They watch the reeds bending along the shore. They understand where sandbars hide beneath the surface. Most of this knowledge has never been written. It lives inside memory, passed quietly from older sailors to younger ones. As one generation grows tired, another steps naturally into its place. A father teaches his son how to tie secure knots. A grandfather points toward stars that help guide nighttime journeys. No great ceremony marks these lessons. They simply become part of life. Much the same is true inside the houses where scribes begin another day's work. Among all occupations in Egypt, the scribe holds a special place. His hands rarely become rough from lifting heavy stones. Instead, they grow steady through years of careful writing. Inside a shaded room, one young scribe unrolls a sheet of papyrus. He prepares black ink made from soot. Beside it rests red ink for special markings. His reed pen is sharpened carefully. Only after everything is ready does he begin writing. Each sign must be clear. Each line must remain straight. Mistakes waste valuable papyrus. So he moves patiently. Outside the window, the village continues its busy morning. Inside, only the faint scratching of the reed pen can be heard. The work may seem quiet, yet these records help hold the kingdom together. Harvests are counted. Supplies are measured. Workers receive their grain. Temple offerings are recorded. Storehouses remain organized. The scribe's careful handwriting becomes another small part of Egypt's remarkable stability. Many people never learn to read. That does not trouble them. They know their own skills. The farmer knows the soil. The fisherman knows the river. The potter knows the clay. The shepherd knows the flock. Every occupation carries its own wisdom. Each kind of knowledge is respected because each serves the community in a different way. By midday, the sunlight has become bright enough to wash the landscape in pale gold. Heat rises from stone paths. Palm leaves barely move. The village slows once again. Workers seek shade whenever possible. Some rest beneath woven shelters built beside the fields. Others sit quietly against cool mud brick walls. Water is passed from hand to hand. Nobody drinks quickly. Every drop matters. Meals remain simple. Fresh bread. A handful of dates. Perhaps onions or beans. Sometimes dried fish caught several days before. The food is plain. Yet it provides enough strength for another afternoon. As people eat, conversations drift lazily through the warm air. Someone speaks about a neighbor repairing a roof before the next flood season. Someone else wonders whether the coming harvest will be as generous as the last. Children chase one another for a little while before growing tired beneath the sun. Even their laughter gradually becomes softer. Nothing feels rushed. The afternoon belongs to endurance rather than speed. Across Egypt, similar scenes unfold at almost the same moment. Villages separated by many miles still share familiar rhythms. The same bread is baked. The same fields are tended. The same canals are repaired. The same prayers are quietly spoken before meals. This shared way of life creates something larger than any single town. People who never meet still live according to similar patterns. Their customs feel familiar. Their work feels familiar. Their seasons feel familiar. Slowly, almost without anyone noticing, this creates trust. Merchants traveling from one village to another know what they will find. Builders arriving at distant work sites understand how labor is organized. Officials collecting grain expect measurements to follow familiar standards. Predictability makes cooperation easier. Cooperation strengthens stability. and stability allows ordinary life to continue with very little interruption. As the afternoon begins its slow journey toward evening, shadows lengthen once more. The hardest heat gradually loosens its grip upon the land. Birds become active again. Children return to helping their parents. Farmers lift their tools one last time before walking home. The river reflects the lower sun in broad ribbons of golden light. Its steady current continues northward without pause. Just as it did yesterday. Just as it will tomorrow. Generation after generation has watched these same waters pass. Some children who now run beside the riverbank will one day become parents guiding their own sons and daughters toward these same fields. The sandals will change. The voices will change. The faces will change. But the rhythm of life will remain. And perhaps that quiet rhythm, repeated patiently across centuries, was one of the greatest foundations of Egypt's remarkable endurance. As evening settles gently over the river once again, smoke rises from cooking fires, bread warms inside clay ovens, and another peaceful day folds itself into memory, leaving the ancient land ready to greet another calm and familiar sunrise. Evening settles across the Nile with the same quiet patience that has marked the passing of countless days. The last warmth of the sun lingers on the tops of the mud brick walls, while long shadows stretch across the narrow paths between homes. The bright light that filled the fields only an hour ago now softens into gentle shades of gold and amber. Palm trees sway almost without movement. The river glows beneath the fading sky, carrying little reflections of the first stars that begin to appear overhead. One by one, families return from their work. A farmer brushes dry soil from his linen clothing before stepping inside his home. His shoulders feel heavy after many hours beneath the sun. His hands carry the rough texture of wooden tools and damp earth. He sets his hoe carefully against the wall, always in the same place, where it will be easy to find before dawn. Nearby, another family gathers bundles of reeds that were cut earlier in the day. They stack them neatly beside their house, knowing they will soon become baskets, roof coverings, mats, or rope. Nothing useful is left scattered. Every object has its purpose. This careful way of living is easy to overlook. Yet it quietly strengthens an entire civilization. When tools are cared for, they last longer. When food is stored carefully, families eat well through difficult seasons. When neighbors help one another repair walls before the flood arrives, everyone becomes safer. Stability is often built from small habits repeated faithfully over many years. Inside one simple home, a clay oven still holds the warmth of the afternoon. A woman places flat rounds of dough against its hot inner wall. Slowly the bread begins to rise. The pleasant smell fills the room, mixing with the gentle scent of smoke from the cooking fire. Her daughter sits nearby, watching closely. She has watched many evenings like this. At first she simply observed. Later she was trusted to carry water. Now she kneads the dough herself while her mother quietly guides her with only a few soft words. Knowledge passes almost silently. The hands teach as much as the voice. The daughter notices how much water is added. She notices how firmly the dough is pressed. She notices how long the bread remains inside the oven. One day she will prepare meals for her own family, and these movements will feel as natural as breathing. This is how traditions survive. Not through grand speeches. Not through written laws alone. But through ordinary evenings shared between generations. Outside, children finish the last of their games before darkness arrives. Their footprints cover the dusty ground in every direction. They chase one another around small trees, laugh for a few moments, then gradually slow as their parents call them home. Tomorrow they will wake early again. Tomorrow they will carry water, gather firewood, watch animals, or help in the fields. Their responsibilities grow little by little. No single day changes them very much. But hundreds of ordinary days slowly shape capable adults. An elderly man sits outside his doorway, enjoying the cooler air. His hair has turned white many years ago. His hands no longer lift heavy loads. Instead, he watches the village with quiet satisfaction. He remembers seasons when the Nile rose especially high. He remembers years when the flood came later than expected. He remembers building houses that still stand nearby. Some of the young workers greeting him this evening were once children playing in the same dusty paths. Time moves slowly here. People rarely hurry through life. Years are measured by harvests more than by numbers. A person remembers that a child was born during the year of a particularly good flood, or that a new house was built after an especially dry season. The land itself becomes the calendar. The river becomes the clock. As darkness deepens, the sounds of work begin to fade. Instead, softer sounds take their place. The gentle crackling of cooking fires. The quiet conversation of neighbors. The distant call of birds settling among the reeds. The slow splash of an oar as one final fishing boat reaches the shore. A fisherman ties his boat to a wooden post driven firmly into the riverbank. His catch has been modest today. Enough fish to feed his family. Perhaps enough to trade a little in the morning. He carefully untangles his net before putting it away. A torn net left until tomorrow may become harder to repair. Small tasks completed today make tomorrow easier. This simple habit appears everywhere throughout Egyptian life. The potter cleans his wheel before resting. The carpenter sharpens his tools. The farmer stores seed safely. The scribe rolls his papyrus carefully to protect it from dust and moisture. Each person prepares quietly for another day. This gentle preparation creates confidence. Morning never arrives as a surprise. The work waiting tomorrow has already begun today. Farther along the river, several boats remain tied together beside a small landing place. Merchants have traveled from distant villages carrying goods that cannot easily be produced everywhere. One boat holds fine linen woven with unusual care. Another carries polished stone jars. Another has fragrant oils stored inside carefully sealed containers. Trade along the Nile moves slowly but steadily. The river asks for patience. Boats drift with the current when traveling north. Returning south often depends upon favorable winds filling simple square sails. Sometimes the journey takes longer than expected. No one grows angry with the river. The river follows its own pace. People simply learn to follow it. This willingness to move with nature instead of struggling against it became one of Egypt's quiet strengths. Many problems cannot be solved by force. Some are solved only through patience. The merchants understand this. While waiting for tomorrow's trading, they sit together sharing bread and dried fish beneath the evening sky. Although they come from different villages, their customs are familiar. Their greetings are familiar. Their measurements of grain are familiar. Their language feels comfortably known. Travel does not carry them into completely unfamiliar worlds. Instead, each village feels like another chapter of the same long story. That shared culture helps peaceful trade continue year after year. Meanwhile, inside a temple courtyard, a few priests finish the final duties of the day. Oil lamps flicker gently against stone walls. The scent of incense lingers in the warm air. The temple is quiet now. Most visitors have already returned home. The priests move slowly, almost silently, caring for sacred spaces with the same steady attention shown by farmers tending their fields. Religion in Egypt is woven gently into everyday life. People do not separate ordinary work from their understanding of the world around them. The river, the seasons, the harvest, the rising sun, the stars overhead, all belong to an ordered world that feels dependable. This belief brings comfort. When the seasons follow their familiar course, life feels balanced. When each person fulfills daily responsibilities, the larger order of society also remains balanced. Whether one is planting grain or recording harvests or shaping clay into jars, every task seems connected to something greater. For many people, this quiet sense of purpose makes difficult work easier to bear. A long afternoon beneath the sun feels more meaningful when it becomes part of a larger pattern shared by everyone. Across the fields, the last workers finish guiding cattle back towards simple enclosures. The animals move slowly after a full day of pulling wooden plows through soft earth. Their breathing is calm. Dust settles gently around their feet. A young boy brushes one animal's neck before leading it toward fresh water. He speaks softly, almost as though talking to an old friend. He has cared for these animals since he was very small. He knows which one prefers to walk first. He knows which one tires more quickly. He notices even the smallest changes in their behavior. This quiet familiarity develops only through time. Many years of daily care create understanding that no written instruction could fully explain. The moon climbs higher above the eastern desert. Its pale light spreads across rooftops and narrow lanes. Many homes have now become completely still. Families rest after another day of work. Some sleep upon woven mats. Others rest upon simple wooden beds laced with rope. Open windows allow the cooler night air to move gently through the rooms. Outside, the village seems almost asleep. Yet Egypt itself never truly sleeps. Somewhere farther along the Nile, another village is still finishing its evening meal. Farther south, fishermen continue working beneath the moonlight. Farther north, guards quietly watch over storehouses filled with grain gathered from recent harvests. The great kingdom breathes slowly through thousands of separate communities, each living according to familiar routines. No single village supports Egypt alone. No single family carries its future. Instead, strength comes from countless ordinary lives unfolding together. Like individual reeds growing along the riverbank, each one may seem small by itself. Together they form a strong, living shoreline that holds the earth in place against the steady current. As midnight approaches, the desert grows cooler. The day's heat finally slips away into the clear night sky. Jackals call softly in the distance beyond the cultivated fields. Their voices echo faintly across the open land before fading into silence. The stars appear brighter now. Without smoke or bright lights to hide them, they fill the heavens in astonishing numbers. A young shepherd lying awake for a few moments before sleep looks upward. He does not know that countless generations before him gazed at these same stars. Nor can he imagine the many generations still to come. He simply enjoys the cool air after the long day's heat. Tomorrow he will rise before sunrise. His sheep will need fresh pasture. The routine will begin again. The same quiet cycle that shaped his parents. The same cycle that shaped their parents before them. One peaceful day joining another. One careful season following the last. Without realizing it, millions of ordinary people like him continue weaving the steady fabric of Egyptian civilization, thread by thread, sunrise after sunrise, beside the calm and faithful waters of the Nile. Long before the first bird begins to sing, the Nile is already moving. Its gentle current slips through the darkness without effort. The river does not pause for sleep, nor does it hurry toward the sea. It simply continues, just as it has through more seasons than anyone can remember. The water brushes softly against the reeds along the shore. Tiny ripples spread outward whenever a fish rises for only a moment before disappearing again beneath the smooth surface. The villages remain quiet. Most homes are still wrapped in darkness. Small oil lamps have burned low during the night. Cooking fires have become little more than warm ashes beneath thin layers of gray dust. Inside one modest home, a mother wakes before anyone else. She sits quietly for a few moments, listening. The peaceful breathing of her children. The faint whisper of the wind outside. The distant murmur of the river. The world has not fully awakened yet. There is comfort in these few silent moments before the day's work begins. She rises carefully so no one else is disturbed. Her bare feet touch the cool packed earth floor. She reaches for a small clay lamp, adding a little oil before lighting the wick. A soft golden glow fills only a small part of the room, leaving gentle shadows dancing along the mud brick walls. Nothing in the house is extravagant. A few woven baskets rest neatly against one wall. Clay jars stand beside them, holding grain collected during the last harvest. A low wooden stool supports a simple grinding stone. Everything has its place. Every object is familiar. The family has learned that when each tool is returned carefully after use, tomorrow begins more smoothly. This quiet order appears again and again throughout Egyptian life. Order inside the home. Order inside the workshop. Order inside the fields. Order inside the storehouses. Each small act of care supports the next. Outside, another lamp appears through a doorway farther down the lane. Then another. Soon tiny points of warm light begin glowing throughout the village like gentle stars resting upon the earth. The first workers step outside. Some stretch tired muscles after yesterday's labor. Others quietly adjust the straps of sandals that have already carried them over countless dusty paths. The leather has become soft with use. The soles have worn smooth. Yet they continue serving faithfully. People repair what they own instead of replacing it. A torn sandal is stitched. A cracked basket is rewoven. A damaged fishing net receives new knots. This careful habit allows families to make the most of what they have. Waste is rare. Patience is common. Near the edge of the village, an old man sits beside a pile of broken tools. At first glance, they appear useless. A cracked wooden handle. A bent copper blade. A worn basket missing several reeds. But the old man sees possibilities. The handle may become part of another tool. The copper can be reshaped. Fresh reeds can strengthen the basket. His hands move slowly, almost lovingly, as he gives each object another chance to serve. Many people throughout Egypt live with this same quiet respect for useful things. Perhaps it grows naturally in a land where every harvest depends upon careful preparation. As dawn slowly brightens the eastern sky, more voices begin to drift through the village. They remain calm. Nobody calls loudly. Neighbors greet one another with quiet familiarity. Children rub sleep from their eyes while carrying small baskets or clay jars. Even the youngest members of the household have simple responsibilities. A little girl carefully gathers dry reeds for the morning fire. Her older brother carries fresh water from the river. Neither task is especially difficult. Yet both matter. By sharing small responsibilities from an early age, children slowly become dependable adults. Responsibility does not arrive all at once. It grows quietly, one ordinary day after another. The smell of fresh grain being ground begins spreading through the village. Heavy grinding stones turn steadily. The sound is soft but constant. Stone against stone. Again. And again. The work requires patience. The woman turning the upper stone has repeated this motion so many times that her hands hardly seem to think about it anymore. Her arms move with an easy rhythm learned over many years. Soon fine flour gathers beneath the stone. Later it will become bread. Simple work creates simple food. Simple food supports another day of labor. Everything connects. As sunlight finally reaches the tops of the palm trees, the fields beyond the village begin filling with workers. Some carry wooden hoes across their shoulders. Others guide donkeys loaded with baskets. A pair of oxen walk slowly beside their owner, their steady footsteps pressing into the soft earth. Nobody rushes. The fields will still be there a few moments later. The sun will continue rising whether anyone hurries or not. There is wisdom in accepting the pace of the land. The farmer understands this better than almost anyone. He cannot command the seeds to grow more quickly. He cannot ask the river to flood earlier. He cannot persuade the wind to blow from another direction. Instead, he observes. He waits. He prepares. His work is filled with patience because nature itself moves patiently. Over many generations, this patient way of thinking quietly shapes the character of an entire civilization. Farther away, beyond the cultivated fields, the desert stretches toward the horizon. Its golden sand appears almost endless beneath the growing light. At first, it seems empty. Yet even the desert plays an important role in Egypt's stability. It forms a natural boundary. Travel across its vast open spaces is difficult. Many villages remain connected most easily by the Nile instead. The river becomes not only a source of water but also a thread gently tying communities together from south to north. Messages travel upon boats. Stone travels upon boats. Grain travels upon boats. People travel upon boats. The Nile quietly gathers distant settlements into one connected world. In one riverside village, several fishermen prepare to leave before the morning breeze grows stronger. Their small wooden boat rests partly upon wet sand. Together they push. The boat slides forward with a soft scraping sound. Water gathers around its sides. One fisherman steps aboard first, balancing easily despite the gentle rocking. The others climb in after him. Their nets are folded neatly. Their oars rest quietly across the boat. No unnecessary movement. Everything has been arranged before leaving shore. Preparation saves effort later. It is another small habit repeated throughout Egypt. The fishermen move away from the bank with slow, steady strokes. Behind them, the village becomes smaller. Ahead, morning sunlight begins sparkling across the water. The river welcomes them once again. Not every fishing trip brings large catches. Some days are generous. Others are modest. Still, the fishermen return. Again tomorrow. And again the day after that. Their confidence comes not from expecting perfection every day, but from trusting the steady rhythm of many seasons together. This quiet trust helps ordinary people remain hopeful even during difficult years. Elsewhere, inside a shaded workshop, a young apprentice begins sweeping yesterday's wood shavings from the floor. His teacher has not yet arrived. Still, he knows what should be done first. Clean floors make work easier. Sharp tools work better. Organized benches save time. These lessons may seem ordinary. Yet they slowly shape careful craftsmen. The master carpenter arrives a short time later carrying fresh pieces of acacia wood. He smiles gently when he sees the workshop already prepared. Very few words are exchanged. None are necessary. The apprentice has shown respect through his actions. The teacher responds by trusting him with slightly more difficult work. Learning happens quietly. Trust grows quietly. Skill grows quietly. Nothing is forced. By late morning, the workshop fills with familiar sounds. The smooth pull of a bow drill. The careful tap of a wooden mallet. The gentle scraping of copper blades shaping wood. Outside, another workshop echoes with different sounds. A potter turns his wheel steadily while moist clay rises beneath practiced hands. Nearby, weavers stretch linen threads across simple looms. The soft knock of wooden frames creates a calm rhythm that drifts into the warm air. Each workshop has its own music. None of it is loud. All of it belongs naturally to the village. Walking through these streets, one hears the steady heartbeat of ordinary work. No single sound dominates. Instead, many small sounds blend together. Grinding grain. Children talking softly. Donkeys carrying loads. Birds calling from palm trees. Water splashing against the riverbank. The turning of pottery wheels. The tapping of tools. Together they create the peaceful voice of daily life. For centuries, this same gentle chorus has greeted each new sunrise. One generation hears it as children. Later they hear it as parents. Finally they hear it as elders sitting quietly outside their homes while younger hands continue the work. The sounds change very little. The people change slowly. Yet the rhythm remains. Perhaps this is one of the deepest reasons Egypt endured for so very long. Its strength was not built only from monuments of stone. It was built from millions of quiet mornings. From families who trusted one another. From neighbors who shared labor. From craftsmen who taught patiently. From farmers who understood the river. From children who grew into adults by watching careful hands repeat familiar work. As the sun climbs higher once again, warming the fields and brightening the broad waters of the Nile, another peaceful day settles gently into its familiar rhythm, carrying the people of Egypt forward with the same calm steadiness that has guided them for countless generations. As the morning slowly matures, the soft coolness that greeted the dawn begins to disappear. The sunlight grows warmer with each passing moment. Long shadows shorten across the fields until they gather beneath the feet of the workers. The breeze that drifted gently over the Nile becomes quieter now, leaving the reeds standing almost perfectly still along the riverbank. The day's true work has begun. Across the wide green fields, farmers move at an unhurried but steady pace. Their wooden hoes rise and fall with quiet rhythm. Each step presses lightly into the rich black soil left behind by the Nile's generous floods. The earth is soft beneath their sandals, still holding a little moisture from the river that has shaped this land for thousands of years. No one watches the sun constantly. There is no need. Its warmth can be felt upon every shoulder. Its light slowly changes the colors of the land. The workers understand the passing of time simply by looking around them. A field that glows with pale morning light will soon become bright beneath the full sun. Later, shadows will quietly stretch once more. The land itself keeps the hours. One farmer pauses for a moment. He bends down and picks up a handful of dark soil. Slowly, he rubs it between his fingers. It feels rich. Soft. Ready. His father once taught him how healthy soil should feel. His grandfather taught his father. Long before either of them was born, another farmer had learned the same lesson from older hands. No written page carries this knowledge. The earth itself becomes the teacher. A few rows away, another family works together. The oldest son guides a pair of oxen pulling a simple wooden plow. His younger sister follows behind, gently breaking apart larger clumps of earth with a wooden rake. Their mother walks beside them carrying a basket filled with seed. Each person performs only one part of the task. Together they complete it with surprising ease. There is no confusion because everyone understands the rhythm. No one needs to be told where to stand. No one wonders what comes next. These routines have been practiced through many seasons. The work almost seems to guide itself. This quiet cooperation appears everywhere in Egyptian life. A baker cannot work without grain. A farmer cannot store grain without baskets. A basket maker needs reeds gathered from the river. The reed gatherer depends upon boats. The boat builder depends upon carpenters. The carpenter depends upon tools shaped by metal workers. Each occupation rests gently upon another, like carefully placed stones supporting a sturdy wall. No single stone carries all the weight. The strength comes from every piece working together. As the morning grows brighter, more boats begin to appear upon the Nile. Some glide quietly with square linen sails catching the gentle wind. Others move with the steady pull of oars dipping into the calm water. Their reflections stretch and bend across the river's smooth surface. One boat carries baskets overflowing with onions and garlic harvested from nearby gardens. Another holds large clay jars carefully tied together with rope. Farther away, a wider vessel transports heavy blocks of limestone from a quarry farther south. The boat sits low in the water beneath its weight. The men aboard know every movement must remain smooth and balanced. A sudden shift could disturb the cargo. So every step is slow. Every command is spoken calmly. Every rope is checked twice. This careful attention becomes another quiet habit that supports the kingdom. The greatest accomplishments often depend upon simple caution. At a small riverside landing, several merchants wait patiently beneath a woven shelter made from palm branches. Their donkeys stand nearby, flicking their tails lazily against insects. Nobody appears impatient. Travel has always required time. The river follows its own pace. Boats arrive when they arrive. The merchants use the waiting hours well. One repairs the strap of a leather sandal. Another counts bundles of flax. A third shares bread with a traveling friend whom he has not seen since the last trading season. Waiting itself becomes part of life. Rather than fighting against it, people quietly fill those moments with useful work. This patient way of living eases many small frustrations before they can grow. Farther inland, a narrow road winds between cultivated fields. Its surface is dry and dusty. Countless sandals have worn the same path smooth over many generations. Here comes a young messenger carrying a small bundle tucked beneath his arm. He walks steadily but does not run. The message is important. Still, rushing through the heat would only bring exhaustion. He has learned to keep a pace that can be maintained for many miles. Steady steps often carry a traveler farther than hurried ones. As he passes one field after another, familiar sights greet him. Women gathering vegetables. Children chasing chickens away from freshly planted rows. Old men sitting beneath sycamore trees, weaving rope from papyrus fibers. Shepherds leading goats toward patches of fresh grass. Everywhere there is movement. Yet nowhere is there haste. The kingdom breathes with a slow and even rhythm. Inside another village, life follows much the same pattern. The streets are narrow enough that neighbors greet one another almost without trying. Doors remain open to welcome fresh air. The smell of baking bread drifts from one home. From another comes the sweet scent of crushed dates being prepared for a simple meal. A woman hangs freshly washed linen upon a rope stretched between two wooden posts. The cloth catches the warm breeze and gently sways back and forth. Nearby, several children sit beside their grandmother. She holds a bundle of papyrus reeds across her lap. Patiently she shows them how each strip must be folded, how tightly each weave should cross another, how the basket slowly takes shape. The children try to copy her movements. Their fingers are clumsy at first. Some reeds slip loose. Others bend unevenly. The grandmother simply smiles. She gently loosens the mistakes. Then she begins again. There is no scolding. Only another quiet lesson. Learning arrives one patient attempt at a time. By afternoon, these children will remember a little more than they knew this morning. By next year, their hands will move more confidently. Years later, they will teach the same craft to children of their own. The skill continues traveling forward without interruption. This gentle passing of knowledge is one of the strongest foundations of Egypt's long life. Many kingdoms depended heavily upon a few remarkable people. Egypt depended upon millions of capable ordinary people. The difference is easy to overlook. Yet it matters greatly. A civilization remains strong when everyday knowledge belongs to many hands instead of only a few. Near the edge of the village, a small group of scribes works inside a cool administrative building. The thick mud brick walls protect them from the strongest afternoon heat. Light enters through narrow openings high above. Inside, the air feels peaceful. One scribe carefully records how many baskets of grain have arrived from nearby farms. Another counts clay jars stored inside a granary. A third checks earlier records to make certain every number agrees. Their work demands patience. Numbers must be accurate. Measurements must remain fair. If too little grain is recorded, someone may go hungry later. If too much is counted by mistake, confusion spreads through the storehouses. The scribes understand that careful records help the entire community. Most farmers will never see these written lists. Still, they benefit from them every season. Good organization often goes unnoticed because it quietly prevents problems before they appear. Outside, the sun climbs toward its highest point. The air begins to shimmer above the fields. The stones beneath people's feet grow warm. Birdsong becomes less frequent. Even the animals search for patches of shade. The hardest hours of the day have arrived. Work continues, but more slowly now. Farmers pause beneath palm trees. Boatmen rest beneath simple woven shelters stretched across their boats. Craftsmen place tools aside for a short while. Clay water jars are opened. Cool water is poured carefully into small cups. Nobody drinks carelessly. Water is precious, even beside the Nile. The river gives generously. Still, every household understands the value of careful use. As workers rest, conversations remain soft. Someone speaks about repairing an irrigation gate before the next flood season. Another remembers a harvest from many years ago when the grain grew taller than a man's waist. A young apprentice asks his teacher why one kind of wood bends more easily than another. The teacher answers slowly. There is time. The lesson need not be rushed. Heat encourages patience. The afternoon asks everyone to move a little more gently. Far beyond the villages, where the fertile fields finally meet the endless desert, warm winds begin carrying fine grains of sand across the empty ground. The dunes slowly change shape. No person notices the change from one hour to the next. Only after many seasons does the landscape reveal that it has quietly shifted. Egypt itself often changes in much the same way. Its greatest transformations do not happen suddenly. They unfold slowly. One careful harvest. One repaired canal. One child learning a craft. One family building another home. One scribe recording another season's grain. Thousands upon thousands of ordinary moments quietly gather together, until generations later they become the long and steady history of a civilization that seems as enduring as the river flowing patiently beside it. And while the sun continues its slow journey across the bright Egyptian sky, the people continue theirs as well, working, learning, sharing, and trusting the familiar rhythm that has carried their lives, and the life of their kingdom, through century after peaceful century. The afternoon light begins its slow descent, though the heat still lingers heavily across the land. Shadows stretch out again, long and thin, touching the edges of walls, wells, and narrow village paths. The air feels still, almost suspended, as if even the wind has chosen to rest for a while. The Nile continues its steady movement beside everything, unchanged, patient, carrying small fragments of sunlight upon its surface. In the fields, work continues in quieter form now. Movements are slower. Voices are softer. Tasks are finished rather than begun. A farmer straightens his back after hours of bending over the soil. His hands are coated in dust that clings lightly to the lines of his skin. He looks across the field, not with urgency, but with a calm sense of completion. What needed to be done today has been done. What remains can wait for tomorrow. This sense of timing is deeply rooted in daily life. Work is not endless motion. It is a cycle. Morning begins effort. Afternoon sustains it. Evening allows it to rest. The land itself encourages this rhythm. When the sun is too strong, labor slows. When the air cools, activity returns. People learn to move with nature rather than against it. At the edge of a canal, a small group of workers gathers mud from the bank. Their movements are careful and steady. The canal must remain open for water to flow freely into the fields. Even a small blockage could change the condition of an entire stretch of farmland. Yet there is no panic in their work. Only attention. Only patience. One man smooths the inner wall of the canal with his hands, pressing wet earth into place so the water will pass cleanly. Another checks the flow, watching how it moves around small bends in the channel. A third places reeds along the edge to strengthen the structure. Each motion feels simple, but together they protect the life of many families. Water in Egypt is never taken for granted. It arrives with the Nile. It withdraws. It returns again in its season. Everything depends upon this predictable cycle. So the people learn to protect it carefully, quietly, without complaint. Farther away, near a shaded grove of palm trees, a group of travelers rests beside their donkeys. They have come from another settlement downstream. Their journey has taken most of the day. The animals lower their heads, breathing deeply after the long walk along dusty paths. The travelers sit upon woven mats, sharing simple food. Dried bread softened with water. A few dates. A small piece of salted fish wrapped in cloth. No one rushes their meal. There is nowhere urgent to go. Travel in this land has its own slow rhythm. Villages are connected, but distance is respected. The river helps reduce the burden of distance, yet even along the Nile, movement requires time and care. As the travelers rest, they speak in calm voices about their journey. They mention the condition of the roads, the behavior of the river at certain bends, the friendliness of villages they passed along the way. Their words are not filled with excitement. Only observation. Only memory. Information like this travels across Egypt as quietly as the river itself. In another part of the village, inside a small courtyard, a potter continues shaping clay even as the afternoon heat begins to fade. His wheel turns slowly beneath his hands. The clay rises and settles, responding to the gentle pressure of his fingers. He does not force the shape. He guides it. If the clay leans too far, he steadies it. If it collapses, he begins again. There is no frustration in this repetition. Only acceptance. Clay teaches patience. And patience teaches skill. Beside him, finished pots dry in the sun. Some will hold grain. Some will carry water. Some will store oil or spices. Each one will travel to another home, another family, another quiet corner of daily life. Though simple in appearance, these vessels become part of every household. They carry the necessities of living. They also carry the quiet proof of human hands shaping the materials of the earth into something useful. As evening approaches once more, the village begins to shift again. Work does not stop suddenly. It gently fades. Tools are cleaned. Fields are left in order. Animals are guided back toward enclosures. Small fires are lit for cooking. Smoke rises slowly into the cooling air, curling upward before dissolving into the sky. The smell of bread returns. Warm. Familiar. Comforting. Inside homes, families gather once more. Children return from their tasks with tired steps. Elders sit near doorways where the last light of the day still lingers. A mother divides food carefully among her children, making sure each portion is fair and enough. A father leans against a wall, resting his arms after a long day in the fields. No one speaks loudly. There is no need. The village understands itself without many words. Outside, the river reflects the deepening colors of the sky. Gold fades into soft orange. Then into quiet purple. Then into the gentle blue of early night. Small boats drift near the shore, tied securely so they will not be carried away by the current. A fisherman checks his nets one last time before sleep. He feels for any weak knots. He tightens them carefully. He knows that tomorrow's work depends on tonight's preparation. This awareness of tomorrow exists everywhere. It is never distant. It is always close enough to feel. As stars begin to appear, one by one, the desert beyond the fields grows cooler. The heat of the day slowly sinks into the sand and stone, leaving behind a quiet stillness that belongs only to night. From time to time, a distant call of an animal echoes across the open land. Then silence returns. The Nile continues to move. Unhurried. Unchanging in its motion. It reflects the stars above as if holding them gently upon its surface. In the villages, lamps are extinguished one by one. Each home grows darker. Each sound becomes softer. Each family settles into rest. Sleep comes easily here, not because life is without difficulty, but because life follows a rhythm that is known and trusted. Work will return in the morning. The river will still be there. The fields will still be waiting. And so will the steady routines that have shaped every generation before. In this quiet certainty, people find rest. And in that rest, they gather strength for another day shaped by the same gentle cycle that has carried Egyptian life forward for as long as memory can reach. Night deepens now, settling fully over the land without resistance. The last warmth of the day has faded from the stones and walls. What remains is a softer kind of air, cooler and still, moving only when it must. The Nile continues its slow passage through the darkness, carrying the reflection of stars like scattered light resting upon black glass. Most of Egypt sleeps. Yet even in sleep, the civilization does not feel empty. It feels inhabited. Alive in a quiet way. In one small village, a guard sits near a storage building where grain from the recent harvest is kept. The structure is simple, made of thick mud brick that holds the coolness of the night inside. Inside those walls lies the work of many hands and many days. Grain collected slowly from fields, carried in baskets, measured carefully, stored with attention. The guard does not move much. He listens. The night has its own sounds. The faint rustle of wind passing over dry reeds. The distant call of a night bird. The soft shifting of animals somewhere beyond the fields. Nothing feels threatening. Only present. His responsibility is not dramatic. It is steady. To watch. To remain awake while others rest. To ensure that the storehouse remains safe through the long hours of darkness. In another part of the village, a small oil lamp still burns inside a house where a scribe continues working longer than most. The flame flickers gently, casting moving shadows along the wall. His papyrus rests flat on a wooden surface. Ink is prepared carefully beside him. The marks he writes are small and deliberate. He records what was gathered during the day. How much grain arrived. Which fields contributed. Which storehouses received deliveries. Everything must match. Everything must remain balanced. There is a calm satisfaction in this precision. Numbers become a kind of order that reflects the wider order of life outside. Fields produce. Rivers deliver. Workers gather. Scribes record. Nothing stands alone. Everything connects quietly through simple systems repeated every season. Outside, the village rests more deeply now. Doors are closed. Courtyards are still. Even the dogs have settled into sleep near the edges of homes. The only movement comes from the river, which continues its endless journey past sleeping fields and silent reeds. Along its banks, small boats remain tied in place. Their ropes stretch gently, occasionally tightening as the current shifts. Inside one boat, a fisherman sleeps curled beneath a simple cloth. His net lies beside him, already repaired earlier in the evening. He will not think of it now. Only rest. Only stillness. Farther south along the river, another settlement remains faintly awake. Not because of work, but because of habit. A few elders sit outside their homes, enjoying the coolness that only night can bring. They speak in slow voices. Their words are not urgent. They talk about the river's behavior during past floods. They remember seasons when the water rose gently. They remember others when it rose higher than expected, reaching into fields and changing the shape of the land for a time. These memories are not spoken with fear. They are spoken with understanding. The river is powerful, but known. It is part of life, not separate from it. Even its unpredictability has patterns learned over many generations. This shared memory across time is another quiet foundation of stability. People remember. They pass down what they remember. And so, even uncertainty becomes familiar. Above all of this, the night sky expands fully now. It feels vast and close at the same time. Stars are scattered in patterns that have guided travelers for as long as boats have moved upon the Nile. A shepherd lying near the edge of a field looks upward for a moment before sleep takes him completely. He does not think in words. Only in feeling. The cool air. The faint scent of dry grass. The distant movement of animals settling for the night. The sky above him, endless and calm. He turns slightly, pulling a woven cloth closer to his body. Sleep arrives without effort. In Egypt, night is not feared. It is accepted. It is part of the same rhythm as daylight. Just as the sun rises without asking permission, the night arrives without resistance. Both are understood. Both are trusted. Inside homes, families rest in quiet clusters. A mother adjusts a child's blanket. A father turns slightly in his sleep. An elder breathes slowly, deeply, as if matching the rhythm of the river itself. The village holds itself together even in sleep. Not through force. Not through command. But through repetition. Through familiarity. Through the simple fact that tomorrow will resemble today in almost every important way. And this repetition, far from making life dull, gives it structure. It allows people to plan. To prepare. To trust the next morning before it arrives. Far beyond the fields, where cultivated land meets the open desert, the wind begins to move more freely. It passes over sand dunes shaped by countless unseen nights. The desert does not sleep in the same way as the river valley. It remains open, wide, and quiet. A place of distance. A place of stillness that feels different from the fertile land beside it. Yet even here, the same night sky stretches overhead. The same stars. The same gentle light. Two very different landscapes share the same heavens. Between them lies the Nile, steady and continuous, holding life along its edges. As the night reaches its deepest hour, almost all sound disappears. Only the river remains in motion. Its presence is constant, but not loud. It does not announce itself. It simply continues. And within that continuing movement, villages rest, fields wait, storehouses remain guarded, and generations sleep without worry for the morning ahead. The civilization does not feel paused. It feels sustained. Like something breathing slowly in the dark. In this quiet hour before dawn returns, Egypt is not defined by monuments or rulers or great events. It is defined by something softer. A shared rhythm. A patient agreement between people and land. A belief, lived rather than spoken, that life will continue in the same steady pattern it always has. And so the night holds everything gently. Not stopping it. Not changing it. Just carrying it forward, moment by moment, until the first faint light of another day begins to gather once again at the edge of the horizon. The night begins to loosen its grip, though it does so without hurry. There is no clear moment when darkness becomes dawn in Egypt. Instead, the change arrives like a quiet thought spreading across the sky. The black deepens into blue, then slowly softens into gray, and finally begins to carry the faintest hint of warmth far beyond the eastern horizon. The river notices this change first. Not in any conscious way, but in how it reflects the sky. The Nile, still moving as always, begins to hold a lighter tone upon its surface. Stars that once appeared sharp and bright now fade gently into the growing light. The water becomes less like a mirror of night and more like a path opening toward morning. Along the riverbanks, silence still remains. But it is no longer deep. It feels like silence that is waiting. In one village, a small child stirs beneath a woven blanket. Not because of noise, but because of habit. The body learns the rhythm of the world around it. Even before thoughts form clearly, the child senses that morning is near. Outside the small home, the air is cooler than it will be later in the day. The child turns slightly, then settles again as sleep holds on for a few more moments. Nearby, an adult is already awake. A woman sits beside a low grinding stone, preparing grain that was stored the night before. Her movements are slow and familiar. Water is added in small amounts. The stone turns with steady pressure. Flour begins to gather again, as it always does at the start of another day. This repetition is not dull to her. It is reassuring. Each morning begins the same way, yet never feels wasted. It is simply life continuing its familiar path. Outside, the first faint sounds of movement begin to appear in the village. A wooden door opens carefully. A pot is placed near a cooking fire. A goat shifts in its pen. Sandaled feet touch the ground with soft steps. Nothing is rushed. Even waking has its own gentle pace. The sky continues to brighten slowly. The stars fade one by one, not disappearing suddenly, but becoming less noticeable as the light grows stronger. The desert beyond the fields begins to take shape again. Dunes appear as soft curves against the horizon. Palm trees become darker silhouettes before they are fully visible. The Nile reflects all of this change. Always present. Always responding. In a small workshop near the edge of the village, a craftsman enters quietly before the heat of the day begins. He opens the door and pauses for a moment, allowing his eyes to adjust to the dim interior. Tools rest where they were left the previous evening. Wood shavings remain on the floor. A half-finished object sits upon the workbench, waiting. He places his hand upon it briefly. Not to begin work immediately, but to remember where he left off. There is no confusion. No need to start again. The work continues across days without interruption, like a single long thread. Soon, he begins again. The sound of careful shaping fills the small space. Outside, the village becomes more active as light strengthens. Farmers prepare to walk toward their fields. Water carriers lift their jars. Children are sent to gather small bundles of reeds. A fisherman checks the condition of his nets near the riverbank. Each movement feels connected to the last day, and to the day before that, and to the many days that came before them. This continuity is what gives Egyptian life its quiet strength. Not change, but steadiness. Farther along the river, boats begin to move again. Some carry early morning traders heading toward nearby villages. Others return from fishing trips that began before dawn. Their sails catch the gentle wind, and the boats glide forward without effort. The river supports them as it always has. Guiding without forcing. Carrying without demanding. At a landing place, a group of workers begins unloading bundles of grain from a boat that arrived during the night. They move carefully, passing baskets from hand to hand. Each basket is placed in its proper location. Nothing is left scattered. Everything has its place within the storehouse system that supports the entire region. A scribe stands nearby, observing and recording. He does not speak much. His attention is focused on accuracy. A single mistake could cause confusion later. So he watches closely as each basket is counted and stored. The workers know his role is not to command them, but to preserve order. Order allows everyone else to trust the system. Without it, uncertainty would grow. But here, uncertainty is kept small through repetition and care. As the sun rises further, warmth returns to the land. The coolness of early morning begins to fade. Shadows grow shorter again. The fields awaken fully now. Farmers move into position across wide stretches of cultivated earth. Oxen are guided forward. Plows are lowered into soil. Seeds are prepared in woven containers. The day's work resumes its familiar shape. From a distance, it may appear simple. But within each action lies generations of understanding. How deeply to plant. How far apart to space. When to water. When to wait. This knowledge is not written in grand texts alone. It is carried in hands. In memory. In shared practice. Near the edge of a field, an older farmer watches his grandson working beside him. He says very little, only occasionally pointing toward the soil or the tools. The boy listens without needing long explanations. He learns by doing, by repeating, by slowly becoming part of the rhythm that surrounds him. There is no sense that this way of life must be explained in detail. It simply is. As the morning grows brighter, the village settles into its full working rhythm once again. The sounds return. Tools striking wood. Water splashing into jars. Animals moving through narrow paths. Voices exchanging brief instructions. All of it blends into a calm, steady background. Nothing stands out as urgent. Everything belongs. And above it all, the sun continues its slow climb, marking the passage of another ordinary day in a land where ordinary days, repeated endlessly with care and patience, have built something that lasts longer than memory itself. The river flows beside it all, unchanged in its gentle course, carrying the reflection of sky, land, and time itself, as Egypt moves forward once more into the familiar shape of its endless, peaceful rhythm. The day settles into its steady middle, where time feels less like something that passes and more like something that simply exists. The sun is now high enough that light fills every corner of the land. The Nile shines in long, quiet bands of brightness. The fields glow in soft greens and deep browns. Even the dust in the air seems to hold a kind of golden stillness, suspended for a while before drifting back down to the earth. Work continues, but without urgency. It is not a race. It is maintenance of life. In one field, a farmer pauses and rests his forearms on the handle of his tool. His breathing slows as he looks across the land he has tended since early morning. The soil here is familiar to him in a way that feels almost personal. He knows where it holds moisture. He knows where it dries quickly. He knows how it changes after each flood season, as if the land itself remembers what it has been given. Nearby, another worker adjusts the rope on a water container carried by a donkey. The animal stands patiently, waiting without complaint. The movement is small, almost unremarkable. Yet it keeps the day functioning smoothly. Water must travel from river to field, from river to home, from river to workshop. Every journey is part of a wider pattern that no one person controls entirely, but everyone depends upon. At the edge of the fields, a narrow path leads back toward the village. Along it, a small group of children walks in a line, carrying light bundles of reeds and small containers of water. Their steps are uneven at times, sometimes too fast, sometimes slowing to a wandering pace, but they follow the path they know. They have learned where to turn without needing constant instruction. The village has taught them slowly, through repetition rather than explanation. In the distance, the river continues its steady movement. It does not change its pace for anyone. Yet everything adjusts around it. A fisherman pulls his boat slightly closer to the shore, checking the angle of the sun before deciding when to continue. The water glints against the side of the vessel. He knows the currents well enough to feel when they will be easier to follow later in the day. For now, he rests in the shade of a woven canopy. He does not worry about lost time. The river itself will still be there when he returns. In a shaded courtyard within the village, a group of women gathers to prepare food for the afternoon. Grain is ground again. Dough is shaped with careful hands. Flat loaves are pressed gently and set near a warm surface to cook. The scent of baking bread drifts slowly outward into the surrounding lanes, mixing with the dry smell of sun-warmed earth. Children nearby are drawn to it without needing to be called. They sit quietly for a moment, watching the process with familiar attention. This is not new. It is part of every day. Yet it never feels meaningless. It is the rhythm of nourishment. A rhythm that repeats with dependable kindness. Elsewhere in the village, a small administrative space remains active even during the midday heat. Inside, scribes continue their careful work. Light filters through narrow openings near the ceiling, creating soft lines across wooden surfaces and papyrus sheets. Ink dries slowly in the warm air. One scribe compares numbers recorded earlier in the day with lists from previous days. Another checks the arrival of supplies from nearby settlements. There is a calm discipline in their movements. No one speaks unnecessarily. Accuracy matters more than speed. The records they keep will guide distribution later, ensuring that grain reaches storage, that supplies are accounted for, that each village receives what it needs when the season shifts again. Outside, the heat grows stronger for a time. It presses down gently across rooftops, fields, and riverbanks. Life does not stop. But it becomes quieter. Movement slows. People seek shade where they can. Animals rest. Even the wind seems to pause between moments. Yet beneath this stillness, nothing is idle. Work simply changes its form. A carpenter sharpens tools instead of cutting wood. A farmer repairs baskets instead of working the soil. A boatman inspects ropes instead of traveling. Every task continues the same larger cycle, just in a quieter expression. In a small home near the center of the village, an elderly woman sits beside a doorway where a faint breeze occasionally passes through. She watches the street without needing to stand. Her life has moved through many seasons. Floods that were generous. Floods that were thin. Years of strong harvests. Years of careful rationing. She remembers them not as separate events, but as parts of a long, continuous rhythm. To her, the village has always felt the same in its essentials. Children grow. Fields are tended. Water arrives. Work continues. She adjusts the cloth on her lap and closes her eyes for a moment, listening to the sounds around her. Distant footsteps. Soft conversation. The faint clatter of tools. The steady presence of life unfolding just beyond her doorway. It is enough. As the afternoon slowly begins to soften, the light changes once again. The harsh brightness of midday eases into a gentler tone. Shadows return, stretching outward across paths and fields. The river reflects this change with quiet grace, shifting from sharp silver to warmer tones that hint at the approaching evening. Farmers begin to gather their tools again. One by one, tasks are completed rather than started. A final check of irrigation channels. A final adjustment of fences. A final glance across fields to ensure nothing has been left undone. These endings are not final in the emotional sense. They are simply pauses in an ongoing pattern. Tomorrow will bring the same fields. The same river. The same responsibilities, waiting patiently as they always have. As workers return toward the village, their movements are slower now, not from exhaustion alone, but from the natural easing of the day. The journey home feels familiar. The paths are known. The destination certain. Smoke begins to rise once more from cooking fires as evening approaches. And in this gentle transition from heat to coolness, from labor to rest, the day begins to fold itself quietly into memory, ready to be lived again in almost the same way when the sun returns. The Nile continues beside it all, steady and unchanged, carrying forward the reflection of sky and time, as Egypt moves once again through its unbroken rhythm of living, working, and enduring. Evening arrives in Egypt the way it always does, without announcement and without urgency. The light changes first. It softens across the fields, turning the sharp edges of the day into smoother shapes. The river begins to glow with a deeper gold, then slowly shifts into tones of amber and quiet bronze. Shadows grow longer, stretching gently across the land as if the world itself is settling down after a long, steady breath. Work begins to fade, not abruptly, but gradually, like a conversation that naturally comes to rest. In the fields, farmers finish their final tasks. A last sweep of the soil. A final adjustment of a tool. A final look across rows that will remain untouched until morning. There is no sense of incompletion. Only the understanding that the day has reached its natural end. A man pauses at the edge of his field and wipes dust from his hands. His palms are rough from years of repeated labor, yet his movements are calm. He looks toward the river for a moment, watching how the light rests upon it. That steady water has been part of every day he can remember. It will still be there tomorrow. Nearby, a small group gathers bundles of reeds and tools, preparing to return home. Their footsteps follow familiar paths worn smooth by countless seasons. No one walks alone for long. The village naturally draws its people back together at this hour, as if the land itself guides them inward. At the riverbank, boats are secured one by one. Ropes are tightened. Oars are placed in their resting positions. Nets are folded carefully to avoid tangling before morning. A fisherman checks his vessel with slow, practiced movements. His work is not finished because everything is perfect, but because everything is ready enough. He knows from long experience that the river will wait patiently through the night. On the water, the last traces of movement fade. The Nile becomes quieter in appearance, though it never truly stops. It continues its long journey with the same gentle persistence it always has, reflecting the changing sky above it. Inside the village, life shifts into its evening form. Cooking fires appear in courtyards and small open spaces between homes. Smoke rises in thin, steady lines before dissolving into the cooling air. The scent of bread returns once more, warm and familiar. It spreads through narrow streets, reaching doorways where tired children begin to gather again after the day's activities. Inside one home, a family sits together on woven mats. Food is simple. Bread. Vegetables. Perhaps a small portion of fish or lentils, depending on the day. Meals are shared without hurry. No one rushes the moment. It is a time to rest the body after labor, but also a time to sit together quietly, surrounded by the comfort of routine. A father speaks softly about the condition of the fields. A mother mentions what will need to be prepared for tomorrow's water collection. A child listens, half tired, already drifting toward sleep. These conversations are not grand or dramatic. They are practical, gentle, grounded in the needs of daily life. And yet, they carry something deeper. A shared understanding that tomorrow will arrive much like today. And that this continuity is what makes life feel stable. Outside, the sky continues its slow transformation. Gold fades into soft orange. Then into pale violet. Then into a deeper blue as the first stars begin to appear once again. The village grows quieter. Not empty. Just quieter. People move less. Speak less. Rest more. In a small workshop, a craftsman finishes the last task of the day. He cleans his tools carefully, placing each one in its familiar position. He checks a half-finished object once more, not to continue working, but simply to ensure it is safe until morning. There is satisfaction in this small act of closure. Nothing is left undone in a way that would cause concern. Everything is paused in a way that feels natural. Nearby, a scribe rolls up his papyrus with slow precision. The ink has dried fully now. The records are complete for the day. He ties the scroll gently and places it where it will be stored safely. His work, though quiet, helps maintain the order that supports many lives beyond his own. As night deepens further, lamps are lit again in some homes. Small points of warm light appear across the village, scattered like stars that have come down to rest upon the earth. Each flame marks a family, a household, a small world of its own resting within the larger world of Egypt. Outside the village, the desert begins to cool more noticeably. The heat of the day leaves the sand slowly, releasing its hold into the open night air. The wind moves more freely now, passing over dunes that have been shaped and reshaped by countless unseen nights. Yet even here, there is no feeling of emptiness. The desert and the river valley exist together, different but connected, each defining the other's shape. And between them flows the Nile, unchanged in its steady course, linking distant places into one continuous life. As the night settles fully, sounds become fewer. The last footsteps fade. The last voices grow quiet. The last fires dim. Only the river remains in motion, though even its movement feels like part of the silence rather than a break from it. Egypt rests again, not as something paused, but as something continuing in another form. The same rhythm. The same patience. The same long, steady unfolding of days that blend gently into one another without sharp edges or sudden breaks. And in that calm continuity, the land holds its strength quietly, not through sudden change or dramatic moments, but through the simple, repeated act of life being lived the same way, again and again, beside the faithful flow of the Nile. The stars hang quietly above the Nile, bright enough to cast a faint silver glow across the slow-moving water. For a little while, the world seems to rest between one day and the next. The fields are still. The workshops are silent. The cooking fires have become soft beds of glowing coals beneath layers of white ash. Even the palm leaves hardly move. Only the river continues its endless journey, carrying cool water north through the sleeping land. In one small home near the edge of the village, an elderly couple sleeps on woven reed mats laid across the smooth earthen floor. Their home is modest. Its walls are made from sun-dried mud brick, thick enough to keep much of the day's heat outside. During the afternoon those walls protected the family from the strongest sunlight. Now, during the cool hours before dawn, they gently hold the remaining warmth inside. A small clay jar rests near the doorway. Another stands beside a basket filled with grain. A wooden stool leans against the wall. Nothing inside the house is unnecessary. Everything has earned its place through daily use. The family has learned that a simple home, carefully maintained, can serve many generations. Outside, the narrow lanes between houses are empty. Earlier they were filled with children carrying baskets, neighbors exchanging greetings, and workers returning from the fields. Now only moonlight touches the dusty paths. The footprints left during the day remain visible in places where the wind has not yet covered them. Tomorrow morning, fresh footprints will quietly settle beside the old ones. No one will notice the difference. Life simply continues. Near the riverbank, a pair of donkeys sleep standing close together. Their long day of carrying water jars and bundles of grain has come to an end. Their breathing is slow. Occasionally one flicks an ear at a passing insect before becoming still once again. These animals are part of everyday life. They ask for little. They work patiently. Like the people who care for them, they follow familiar routines from sunrise until evening. Farther along the river, a fisherman wakes briefly. Perhaps the cool air has shifted. Perhaps a fish has disturbed the water near his boat. He opens his eyes for only a moment. The stars are still above him. The rope tying his boat to the wooden post remains secure. The gentle rocking of the river feels familiar. Satisfied that everything is as it should be, he closes his eyes once more. Sleep returns quickly. Trust is a quiet companion. When a person has checked each rope carefully before resting, there is little reason for worry during the night. This habit of preparing carefully before sleep appears throughout Egyptian life. A baker covers tomorrow's flour. A carpenter stores sharp tools safely. A potter protects drying vessels from unexpected moisture. A scribe rolls finished papyrus tightly to keep dust away. A farmer places seed inside sealed jars where insects cannot easily reach it. Tomorrow begins more peacefully because yesterday ended with care. As the hours pass, the moon slowly crosses the sky. Its pale light slips across rooftops and courtyards. Palm trees cast long gentle shadows over the sleeping village. The coolness of the night deepens. Across the broad fields, irrigation canals lie perfectly still. During the day they quietly carried life toward growing crops. Now they reflect the moon like polished stone. The water hardly seems to move. Frogs rest among the reeds. Tiny insects skim lightly across the surface. Somewhere nearby, a heron stands motionless in the shallow water. Its reflection is nearly impossible to separate from the bird itself. Nature also follows familiar rhythms. The birds know when to search for food. The fish know where cooler water gathers. The reeds bend with each passing breeze. Nothing struggles against the season. Everything moves within it. This quiet harmony between people and the natural world is easy to overlook. Yet it shapes almost every part of Egyptian civilization. The farmer plants when the river allows. The boatman sails when the wind is favorable. The builder works hardest during cooler months. The potter dries clay beneath reliable sunshine. Instead of forcing the land to obey, people learn to understand it. Generation after generation, that understanding grows deeper. Long before sunrise, one of the village bakers awakens. The stars have not yet disappeared. Most homes remain completely silent. She lights a small oil lamp. Its gentle flame pushes back only a little darkness, just enough for her hands to work comfortably. She uncovers the flour ground yesterday. Water is added slowly. Her fingers press and fold the dough with calm, practiced movements. Nothing is hurried. She has repeated these motions nearly every morning for many years. Outside, the village remains asleep. Inside, tomorrow's bread has already begun. Soon another baker wakes. Then another. Without speaking to one another, they begin nearly the same work in different homes throughout the village. Across Egypt, hundreds of villages are quietly awakening in almost the same way. Before the first sunlight reaches the fields, dough is already rising. Water jars are already being filled. Fishing boats are already being prepared. The kingdom does not awaken all at once. It awakens gradually, like the slow brightening of the eastern sky. This shared rhythm gives people confidence. Even when traveling to unfamiliar villages, a merchant knows roughly what he will find. Morning bread. Workers preparing tools. Children helping their families. Boats leaving the shore. The details may differ. The rhythm remains familiar. As the eastern horizon slowly grows lighter, the stars begin disappearing one by one. The moon becomes pale. The cool blue colors of night gently give way to soft gray. Birdsong begins with only a few quiet notes. Then another bird answers. Soon the reeds beside the river seem alive with gentle sound. The Nile reflects the changing sky once again. Yesterday's sunrise has become today's sunrise. Tomorrow another will follow. The people who live beside these waters rarely stop to think about how comforting that certainty is. The river rises. The river falls. The sun appears. The sun sets. Children become adults. Parents become elders. Fields are planted. Harvests are gathered. Bread is baked. Homes are repaired. Boats are launched. Nets are mended. These simple acts, repeated over countless generations, become stronger than any single ruler or single lifetime. Perhaps that is the quiet secret hidden within Egypt's remarkable stability. Its greatest foundation is not found only in temples carved from stone. It lives inside ordinary mornings. Inside careful hands. Inside patient work. Inside neighbors who know one another. Inside families who pass their skills from one generation to the next without ever thinking that they are preserving history. And as the first warm rays of another sunrise gently touch the calm waters of the Nile, another peaceful day begins exactly where the last one ended, carried forward by the same steady rhythm that has guided this ancient land for centuries beyond counting. The first sunlight touches the highest leaves of the date palms before it reaches the village below. For a few quiet moments, only the tops of the trees glow with warm gold while the narrow lanes between the homes remain wrapped in cool blue shadows. The Nile catches the morning light next, and long ribbons of brightness begin to stretch across its calm surface. Another day has arrived. No trumpet announces it. No great ceremony marks its beginning. It simply unfolds, just as yesterday did, and the day before that, in a rhythm so familiar that no one pauses to think about it. One by one, doors open. A farmer steps outside and fills his lungs with the cool morning air. It carries the gentle scent of wet earth from the riverbanks, mixed with smoke from the first cooking fires. Somewhere nearby, bread is already baking. Somewhere else, fresh reeds are being cut for baskets that will not be finished until evening. Every home awakens at its own pace. Yet together, they create the feeling that the whole village is breathing. A young boy walks toward the well with a clay jar balanced carefully against his hip. The jar feels heavier when it is empty than when it is full, not because of its weight, but because he knows he must carry it back without breaking it. He has made this walk many times. The path feels familiar beneath his sandals. Small stones lie exactly where he expects them. A patch of smooth earth marks the place where many feet have passed before him. When he reaches the water, he waits patiently while others fill their jars. No one pushes ahead. Everyone knows there is enough water for all. The morning moves gently. There is no reason to hurry. Nearby, a woman sweeps the packed earth outside her doorway with a broom made from bundled reeds. Fine dust rises into the sunlight before settling again. The simple act of cleaning the entrance to her home may seem small. Yet thousands of such small acts quietly shape the appearance of every village. A clean doorway welcomes visitors. A swept courtyard makes work easier. A tidy home reflects careful habits. Care given to small things often grows into care given to larger ones. Not far away, an elderly basket maker begins another day's work. He chooses each reed carefully before weaving. Some are too dry. Some are too thin. Others bend easily and fit perfectly into the growing pattern. His hands move slowly. The weaving itself has become almost effortless after so many years. The basket seems to grow by itself beneath his fingers. Children passing nearby sometimes stop to watch. The old man smiles but keeps working. He knows that curiosity is often the beginning of learning. One day, perhaps one of those children will sit beside him and begin weaving simple patterns of their own. Knowledge in Egypt often begins with quiet observation. There are lessons everywhere. A child watches a fisherman untangle his nets. Another watches a potter center wet clay upon the wheel. A girl learns how to grind grain by standing beside her mother each morning. A boy learns how to guide oxen by walking behind his father through the fields. Little by little, work becomes familiar. There is no single day when a child suddenly becomes an adult. Instead, each season adds another small piece of understanding. The years themselves become the teacher. As the sun climbs higher, more people gather along the riverbank. Some wash clothing against smooth stones. Others rinse baskets or fill storage jars with fresh water. The sound of conversation drifts gently across the water. No one speaks loudly. The river seems to invite softer voices. A fisherman kneels beside his boat, rubbing oil into the wood with a small cloth. The timber has carried him safely through many seasons. He knows every mark upon its surface. He remembers where a new plank was added after striking a hidden log several years ago. He remembers replacing one of the oars after it cracked during a windy afternoon. The boat has aged alongside him. Like every useful object in Egypt, it is repaired whenever possible. Nothing is discarded simply because it has grown old. A carefully repaired tool carries memories within it. Across the river, mist still clings to a few low places near the reeds. As the sunlight grows stronger, the mist slowly disappears. Birds glide silently above the water before settling again among the tall grasses. A pair of ibises walks through the shallow edge of the river, placing each foot with remarkable patience as they search for food beneath the surface. Nature wastes very little movement. People notice this. Without speaking about it directly, they learn from what they see. A farmer does not scatter seed carelessly. A builder does not lift heavy stone without purpose. A merchant does not travel before preparing his goods. Careful effort saves strength. The land itself teaches this lesson every day. Farther inland, the village workshops begin filling with quiet activity. The carpenter examines a fresh piece of acacia wood. He runs his fingers slowly along its grain before making the first cut. He has learned that every piece of wood has its own character. Some are harder. Some are softer. Some bend slightly as they dry. Understanding these small differences makes the finished work stronger. Nearby, the potter adds water to a lump of clay that has become a little too dry during the night. He kneads it gently until it feels smooth once again. Nothing is forced. Everything happens in its proper time. Even the clay asks for patience. A young apprentice watches closely. He notices that the master potter spends far more time preparing the clay than shaping it. At first, this seems surprising. But over the years he will understand. Good work often begins long before anyone notices it. Preparation remains invisible. Its results do not. In another part of the village, a group of women sits together spinning flax into fine thread. Their fingers move with remarkable speed, yet their conversation remains slow and peaceful. The spinning wheels turn with a gentle rhythm. Thread gathers little by little. One length becomes another. Then another. By the end of the day, enough thread may be ready for a weaver to begin making linen cloth. No single person creates the finished fabric alone. The flax grower, the harvester, the spinner, the weaver, each contributes one quiet part. Together they create something lasting. This pattern appears again and again throughout Egyptian life. Every occupation depends upon another. Every family contributes something. No task seems too small. The person who shapes a clay jar may never meet the farmer who eventually fills it with grain. The woman who spins flax may never know the traveler who one day wears the linen she helped create. Yet their lives are gently connected. An unseen thread ties their work together, just as surely as the Nile ties distant villages into one long ribbon of life. As the morning slowly approaches midday, the village settles into its familiar rhythm once more. The smell of warm bread lingers in the air. Children carry messages between homes. Goats wander through patches of shade. Palm leaves whisper softly whenever a breeze passes by. Above everything, the sun continues its steady climb across the clear Egyptian sky. No one questions whether it will rise tomorrow. No one wonders whether the river will continue flowing. These quiet certainties become the foundation upon which ordinary people build extraordinary endurance. Century after century, generation after generation, life continues not through grand moments alone, but through countless peaceful mornings exactly like this one, where the warmth of the sun, the steady flow of the Nile, and the patient work of ordinary hands come together to sustain one of the most enduring civilizations the world has ever known. As the sun climbs toward the middle of the sky, the cool freshness of morning slowly slips away. The light becomes brighter, filling every open space between the houses. The white limestone walls of larger buildings begin to shine beneath the growing warmth, while the mud brick homes take on a soft golden color that seems to belong naturally to the earth from which they were made. The village settles into the steady rhythm of a working day. From a distance, very little appears to change. People move along the same paths. Boats travel along the same river. Smoke rises from familiar cooking places. Animals wander toward familiar patches of shade. Yet every day adds another small layer to the long story of Egypt. Not through remarkable events, but through ordinary lives lived with patience. Near the edge of the cultivated land, a farmer kneels beside a young crop. He brushes away a few weeds that have appeared between the growing plants. The work is careful. He does not pull too quickly. He does not disturb the roots that must continue growing long after he has gone home. His hands move with quiet confidence. The soil is warm now. Tiny insects move through it unseen. The scent of damp earth still lingers beneath the stronger smell of sun-warmed dust. The farmer pauses for a moment. He drinks a little water from a clay cup. Not too much. Just enough to ease the dryness brought by the rising heat. He places the cup back into the shade beside a small basket and returns to his work. His movements are slow. Not because he lacks strength. Because he understands that strength must last the entire day. All across Egypt, people have learned this same lesson. The land rewards endurance more than speed. A worker who rushes through the morning may have little energy left by afternoon. A worker who finds a steady pace can continue long after the hottest hours have passed. The rhythm of labor becomes almost like breathing. Measured. Even. Reliable. Farther away, near one of the irrigation canals, two brothers examine a small section of the bank where the water has begun to wear away the earth. It is not yet serious, but they repair it anyway. One fills woven baskets with damp soil. The other presses the fresh earth carefully into place using a flat wooden board. They smooth the surface with their hands. Then they pour a little water across it to help everything settle together. No one has ordered them to do this today. They simply know it should be done. If small problems are cared for early, they rarely become large ones. Perhaps this habit reaches beyond the canals. Perhaps it also explains something about Egyptian civilization itself. Difficulties were often met before they grew too great. Fields were prepared before planting. Grain was stored before it was needed. Boats were repaired before long journeys. Homes were strengthened before flood season returned. Preparation quietly became one of the kingdom's greatest strengths. Back in the village, the marketplace begins filling with gentle activity. There is no loud shouting. No hurried bargaining. Merchants arrange their goods with quiet care. Fresh vegetables rest inside woven baskets. Clay jars stand neatly in rows. Bundles of flax lean against wooden posts. Simple wooden tools are placed where they can easily be seen. People arrive throughout the morning carrying small items to exchange. A basket of onions. A bundle of fish. Fresh linen cloth. Honey sealed inside clay pots. Everyone seems to understand the unspoken rhythm of the market. Conversations begin politely. Trades are considered carefully. There is little waste. Most people know one another well. Trust has been built over many years. A merchant who treats neighbors fairly today will likely see those same neighbors again next month. Good relationships become as valuable as the goods themselves. Nearby, beneath a woven canopy that offers welcome shade, an elderly woman sells small bundles of herbs gathered from the riverbank. The fragrant leaves release their scent whenever someone lifts one for a closer look. She recognizes nearly everyone who passes. She remembers which family prefers certain herbs for cooking. She remembers whose daughter recently married. She remembers which farmer's youngest child was born during the last flood season. Her memory quietly binds the community together. In a world without written lists for every household, people themselves become living records. Names. Faces. Families. Seasons. All remain gently stored inside memory. Not far away, a young apprentice follows his master through a stone workshop. Large limestone blocks rest upon the ground waiting to be shaped. The air smells faintly of fresh cut stone. Fine white dust covers the worker's sandals. The master runs his hand across one block before beginning. He studies its surface. He listens as he taps it lightly with a wooden mallet. Even stone has its own voice. A small crack hidden inside can often be heard before it can be seen. The apprentice watches closely. He learns not only where to strike. He learns where not to strike. Some lessons come from action. Others come from restraint. The finest craftsmen know both. Outside the workshop, the afternoon heat slowly begins to gather. The shadows become shorter. Palm trees offer smaller patches of shade. Goats rest beneath them whenever they can. Dogs curl quietly beside cool walls. Even the birds seem content to fly less during these warmer hours. The people adjust naturally. Heavy lifting slows. Long journeys pause. Tasks that can wait until later are left for the cooler evening. Instead, quieter work fills the hottest part of the day. Fishing nets are repaired. Clothing is mended. Ropes are braided. Baskets are woven. Seeds are sorted for future planting. The village never truly stops working. It simply changes the kind of work being done. This gentle flexibility allows life to continue comfortably despite the powerful Egyptian sun. Inside one home, an elderly grandfather sits beside his grandson beneath a shaded doorway. Between them rests a simple wooden toy carved many years ago. Its edges have become smooth from countless small hands holding it. The old man gently points toward different shapes carved into the wood. He tells quiet stories about animals that live along the Nile. About crocodiles resting near muddy banks. About graceful ibises walking through shallow water. About patient oxen pulling plows across rich fields. The boy listens with wide eyes. These are not merely stories. They are small lessons about the world around him. He learns to notice, to observe, to respect the creatures sharing the river valley. Knowledge enters his life as naturally as conversation. Nothing feels forced. As the afternoon settles more firmly across the land, the air becomes wonderfully still. The distant sound of a paddle touching water drifts across the Nile. Somewhere a potter's wheel continues turning with quiet rhythm. A woman hums softly while weaving linen. The steady scrape of grinding stones echoes gently between nearby homes. These simple sounds blend together into the peaceful music of ordinary Egyptian life. No single voice stands above the others. Instead, everything belongs to the same calm pattern. The same pattern heard by parents, by grandparents, by countless generations before them. And as the bright sun watches silently over fields, workshops, canals, and quiet villages, another ordinary afternoon unfolds beside the faithful waters of the Nile, adding one more gentle thread to the long and enduring fabric of Egyptian civilization. By the middle of the afternoon, the warmth of the day settles over the valley like a light blanket. The air shimmers gently above the open fields. In the distance, the horizon seems to soften where the fertile land meets the quiet desert. The bright sky stretches without interruption from one end of the valley to the other, and beneath it, the Nile continues its patient journey, never rushing, never resting. The people have learned to listen to the rhythm of the afternoon. It is different from the freshness of morning. The strongest work has already been done. Now the pace becomes slower, more thoughtful, more deliberate. A farmer stands beneath the broad shade of a sycamore tree with several neighbors. Their tools rest beside them. Wooden handles polished smooth from years of use. Copper blades carrying tiny marks left by countless days in the fields. The men share cool water from a large clay jar buried halfway into the ground to keep it fresh. The outside of the jar feels damp where tiny drops of moisture gather in the heat. Each person drinks slowly. The water is cool enough to bring quiet relief after the long hours beneath the sun. No one empties the cup too quickly. There is enough for everyone because everyone drinks with care. Nearby, one of the older farmers begins speaking softly. Not about kings. Not about distant cities. He speaks about the river. He remembers a flood many years ago that arrived a little earlier than expected. He remembers how the water reached the edge of an old grove of palm trees that no longer stands. The younger men listen carefully. The story is pleasant to hear. But it is also useful. Every memory becomes another lesson. The Nile changes from year to year, yet it follows patterns that careful people learn to recognize. One generation gathers experience. The next generation receives it as a gift. This quiet sharing of memory is another reason life remains steady. Knowledge is never allowed to disappear. As the farmers rest, dragonflies move back and forth above the irrigation canals. Their wings catch flashes of sunlight each time they turn. Frogs hide among the reeds where the water remains cool. A white ibis steps slowly through the shallows, pausing every few moments before taking another careful step. Nothing in nature seems hurried. The people notice this without speaking about it. They have lived beside these creatures all their lives. Patience is simply part of the landscape. Farther along the riverbank, a young woman washes linen clothing in the clear water. She kneels upon a smooth stone worn flat by many years of similar work. The cloth is soaked, rubbed gently, then rinsed again. She lifts each piece carefully, allowing drops of water to fall back into the river before placing the linen into a woven basket. When she finishes, she carries the clean garments back toward the village. There, they will be hung upon ropes stretched between wooden posts. The afternoon breeze, though light, will slowly dry them before sunset. These simple household tasks are repeated almost every day. They rarely appear in stories about ancient Egypt. Yet they fill the lives of countless people. Every clean garment, every repaired sandal, every swept floor, every loaf of bread. Together they create comfort. Together they create stability. In one shaded workshop, a weaver sits before a wooden loom. Fine linen threads stretch tightly across its frame. The work requires complete attention. Each thread must pass above one strand and below another. Again and again. The movement becomes almost like breathing. Steady. Even. Peaceful. The soft tapping of the loom fills the room with quiet rhythm. The finished cloth grows only a little with each passing hour. No one expects it to be completed quickly. Beautiful work rarely is. The weaver knows that every careful movement matters. If one thread slips, the pattern changes. So each movement receives the same patient attention as the one before it. Across the village, another craftsman shapes a wooden chest that will one day store clothing and household belongings. He smooths its surface with sandstone until the grain feels almost silky beneath his fingertips. When he pauses, he brushes away the fine dust with a small bundle of reeds. He steps back for a moment, studying the chest from different angles. Not because he doubts his work, but because careful eyes often notice small improvements. Good craftsmanship grows from quiet observation. Outside, children have gathered beneath a cluster of palm trees where the shade is deepest. Their morning chores are finished for now. Some shape tiny animals from damp clay gathered near the river. One child forms a small boat with a pointed bow. Another carefully presses little footprints into the clay using a carved stick. Nearby, two older children practice throwing smooth stones toward a distant tree. They laugh quietly when one stone lands especially close to its mark. Their laughter is gentle. It rises into the warm air and soon becomes part of the ordinary sounds of the village. Even during play, children are learning. Their hands grow stronger. Their eyes become more careful. Their friendships deepen. These small moments will remain with them as they grow older. One day they will work beside one another in fields, workshops, or boats, remembering these quiet afternoons beneath the trees. As the sun slowly begins its journey downward, subtle changes appear throughout the village. The light loses a little of its harsh brightness. Shadows begin stretching once again across the dusty paths. Birds become more active after resting through the hottest hours. Goats stand and wander toward fresh patches of grass. Workers who paused during midday gradually return to their tasks. Along the Nile, fishermen prepare for the evening. Many know that the cooler hours often bring calmer water and better opportunities to cast their nets. One fisherman kneels beside his boat, carefully examining every knot in the net before leaving. His fingers move slowly across the rough fibers. If one section feels weak, he repairs it immediately. A single broken knot could allow valuable fish to escape. Tiny repairs made today prevent larger disappointments tomorrow. This quiet habit seems to echo throughout Egyptian life. Walls are patched before they weaken. Canals are cleared before they become blocked. Seeds are stored before the rains. Lessons are taught before elders grow too old to share them. The future is cared for gently, one ordinary task at a time. Farther upstream, a merchant's boat drifts toward a small landing place. The square linen sail hangs loosely now as the wind begins to fade. Two boatmen guide the vessel with long steering oars. They know every bend of this familiar stretch of river. Every cluster of reeds. every shallow place hidden beneath the water. Their knowledge has grown over decades of quiet observation. No map hangs before them. The river itself is their guide. When the boat reaches shore, the cargo is unloaded carefully. Bundles of papyrus, clay jars sealed with mud, baskets filled with dried dates, lengths of woven linen. Each item has traveled peacefully along the Nile, connecting one community with another. Trade strengthens more than households. It strengthens trust. Villages separated by many days of travel still become neighbors through the steady flow of the river. As the afternoon gently gives way to evening, a cooler breeze finally begins to move across the valley. Palm leaves whisper softly overhead. The scent of warm earth changes as the air grows fresher. People lift their faces for a moment, grateful for the welcome relief. The long day is beginning to soften. Soon cooking fires will be lit once more. Soon families will gather again. Soon the quiet songs of insects will replace the sounds of tools and footsteps. But for now, Egypt rests in this peaceful hour between labor and evening, where the river glows beneath the lowering sun, the fields breathe quietly after a day of work, and countless ordinary people continue the patient routines that have carried their civilization forward through century after unhurried century. Now the last light of the day has slipped beyond the western horizon. The colors of evening have faded into soft shades of blue, and those, too, slowly give way to the deep, peaceful darkness of an Egyptian night. The Nile continues to flow. It asks for nothing. It hurries for no one. It simply carries its calm waters northward beneath a sky filled with countless quiet stars. Along its banks, the villages have become still. The last cooking fire has settled into glowing embers. The final loaf of bread has been shared. Clay bowls have been washed and placed carefully beside the doorway, ready for another morning. Fishing nets hang drying in the cool night air. Wooden tools rest against familiar walls. Boats rock gently where they are tied, rising and falling almost too slowly to notice. Inside the homes, families sleep peacefully. Children dream after long days spent running through dusty lanes and helping with small chores. Parents rest with tired hands that have planted seeds, carried water, shaped clay, woven linen, repaired roofs, guided boats, and baked bread. The elders sleep as well, carrying within them quiet memories of floods, harvests, weddings, births, and the passing of seasons that have come and gone like the steady rhythm of the river itself. Outside, the palm trees sway gently beneath a cool breeze that has traveled across the dark water. The reeds whisper softly along the riverbank. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird calls only once before silence returns. The desert waits beneath the moonlight. Its wide open sands seem endless, yet even they rest peacefully beside the green ribbon of the Nile. For thousands of years, this quiet balance has endured. The river, the fields, the villages, the workshops, the temples, the homes. Not because every season was easy. Not because every year was perfect. But because ordinary people rose each morning and quietly did the work before them. They planted. They harvested. They carried water. They repaired walls. They taught their children. They cared for their neighbors. They trusted the rhythm of the river and the turning of the seasons. Stone monuments have stood for thousands of years. Their shadows still stretch across the sand. They remind us of remarkable builders and skilled craftsmen. But the true strength of Egyptian civilization was never found only in great temples or towering pyramids. It lived in the patient hands that shaped clay every morning. It lived in the careful eyes that watched the water levels along the canals. It lived in the warm ovens where bread was baked before sunrise. It lived in quiet conversations shared beneath the shade of palm trees after long hours of work. It lived in children who learned simply by watching their parents. It lived in families who believed that today's careful work would make tomorrow a little easier. Generation after generation, these ordinary moments became something extraordinary. Not all at once. Not in a single lifetime. But slowly. As gently as the river wears smooth the stones along its banks. As quietly as reeds bend with the evening breeze. As faithfully as the sun returns each morning above the eastern horizon. If you could stand beside the Nile now, you might hear almost nothing at all. Only the faint sound of water touching the shore. The soft rustle of reeds moving in the night wind. The distant murmur of insects hidden among the grasses. The quiet breathing of a sleeping village. The stars above seem close enough to touch. They are the same stars that watched the first farmers guide wooden plows through fresh soil. The same stars that shone above fishermen drifting home with their evening catch. The same stars that looked down upon scribes patiently writing by the light of small oil lamps. Those people have long since become part of history. Their names have faded. Their footsteps have disappeared beneath new layers of earth. Yet the peaceful rhythm of their lives still echoes through the ancient land. It remains in the slow current of the Nile. In the scent of warm earth after the flood. In the quiet strength of a mud brick wall that sheltered generations. In the simple loaf of bread shaped by practiced hands. History often remembers rulers. It remembers victories. It remembers monuments carved from stone. But tonight, we have walked beside another kind of history. The history of ordinary mornings. The history of shared meals. The history of careful work completed without applause. The history of countless peaceful evenings like this one. And perhaps that gentle rhythm was the greatest wonder of all. Now the moon climbs a little higher. The river grows darker, reflecting only scattered silver light. The breeze becomes cooler. The sounds become fewer. One by one, they fade into the vast stillness of the ancient night. There is nowhere else to go. Nothing more to build. Nothing more to carry. Nothing more to mend until morning. Only the quiet river. The peaceful sky. The warm earth slowly releasing the last of the day's heat. And a civilization, resting softly beneath the stars, just as it has done through countless nights beside the faithful waters of the Nile. So let the river continue its endless journey. Let the palm trees sway gently in the cool desert breeze. Let the last glowing embers grow dim. Let the stars keep their silent watch above the ancient world. And as the calm night settles over Egypt once more, may your thoughts become as peaceful as the slow-moving water, as unhurried as the turning of the seasons, and as quiet as the sleeping villages that rest along the timeless banks of the Nile. Good night. And may the ancient river carry you gently into restful sleep.